Welcome to Amplifying Leadership, a podcast for new or seasoned leaders, where we share guest stories, information, tips, and more. My name is Tara Lehman, and I am a partner, coach, and consultant at Twin Life Coaching and Business Services, of which Amplifying Leadership is a division. For our leadership clients, we aim to support you through this podcast, tools, coaching, and more as part of our leadership services. To learn more about our Amplifying Leadership division and our community, please visit us at amplifyingleadership.ca. Today, I am welcoming Therese Gopaul-Robinson, a healthcare consultant specializing in change management, training, and leadership development. She is also a keynote speaker. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tara. Good morning.
So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about you and your leadership journey?
Sure. So, I think about my leadership journey almost as my past life and my new beginning. And so, in my leadership journey, I started off in healthcare and I really just started with a female leader who interviewed me. I had zero skills, but a lot of ambition and a lot of drive. And she decided to take a chance on me and hired me. And I started off as a secretary in a hospital in the medical staff office. And at that point, I realized that, yeah, this was for me. I liked the fact that I felt like I was helping people, but in a different way. I had a direct impact on patient care, at least from my point of view. I worked in the medical staff office, credentialing doctors and all of the clinicians in the hospital. And so I saw directly how that impacted patient care within the hospital. So that's really where I started. Fast forward several years, I had my first leadership role, and I was promoted into the role. So, I started off, which it's always a little bit harder, in my opinion, when you're promoted into leadership versus coming in as a leader, because, you've been working alongside your colleagues, your friends for years, and now the tables have turned a little bit, and now you're tasked with leading the same people that you used to gossip with.
Yes.
So, I transitioned into leadership, and, it was challenging. It was challenging. And, I will say that I had to participate in a leadership development, program, which was great. But what I found was it wasn't enough. And so that was kind of the beginning of me starting to take a look back and look around, in terms of what was happening to other female leaders in my industry and just my friends who were, going into leadership roles as well. So, I had multiple leadership roles after that for years and years and years and years, more years than I will share, because it's a lot of them. But then, fast forward to 2021, I was in a leadership role for about 3 years, and my team was doing great. We were doing, incredible. It was the height of the pandemic, but we were doing well. And I'd spoken about a promotion for a very long time with my leader. And so I finally said, okay, I'm mustering up the courage and I am going to ask for a promotion. I have the data. I'm going to, pitch myself. And I'll tell you, Tara, for me, that was incredibly difficult for multiple reasons. But nevertheless, I did it. I, had my pitch on the screen and began to talk about the promotion, and I was actually fired.
Oh, no.
So, yes. So,
wow.
Oh, yeah. And it took a while for me to share that story because it was embarrassing, and I felt a lot of shame around it. And I felt that, gosh, how stupid am I that I didn't see that coming, that I didn't know? And all the negative things that you say to yourself. And the biggest one was, I knew it, all of the bad things I felt about myself, it's being confirmed. Right. And so that was kind of the new beginning for me at that point in my career. I had been doing this for, almost 20 years or more. And I decided that, I see a lot of issues in my industry, and I see a lot of opportunity to help female leaders, whether emerging or current leaders. And so that's really kind of what started for me in 2021, my new beginning. I started my own healthcare consulting firm. I work with healthcare staffing organizations in the US, and I also developed a leadership development program, but my focus tends to be more on the female leader and mentoring and coaching, because again, what I found is in the traditional leadership development programs, it's very much about the leadership competencies, which you need, but it's lacking a little bit when it comes to things like mentoring and helping female leaders as they navigate things like difficult conversations and imposter syndrome and all of the unique challenges that we face as female leaders.
Yes, of course. And I mean, first of all, congratulations for taking a situation that some people would just internalize and just be down for a very long time about and building something from it. I mean, I am a person who says you learn from quote unquote failures and mistakes, and you certainly did that by, of course you're going to have those feelings, but you realize that there's more to that story. And so that's awesome to hear. And I can't wait to talk about our topic today, which is about female leaders. Of course, a lot of the audience knows I come from a very male-dominated industry myself. And to me, I love talking about how we could elevate those female leaders. So why don't we start with, when you talk to clients or in your research, what do you feel are some of the critical problems that we're seeing with female leaders today, or with female leaders who are hoping to become leaders, right? Maybe they're not quite there. What are those critical issues that you're seeing?
So I think for us as female leaders or emerging leaders, we are facing unique challenges, and that is what experience and research is showing me. And so I like to break it down into 3 buckets. And I break it down into what we bring, what we receive, and what we project. And that's kind of the full picture of the unique challenges that we face. And so, in terms of what we bring with us into the workplace are, as females, just, statistically speaking, we tend to be juggling multiple responsibilities constantly. Right. So, even though we are statistically, I think, half of, about 50% of female leaders are considered breadwinners in the household. Right. But the majority of us are still carrying on the brunt of the responsibilities at home. So we're the breadwinners, and we're also doing most of the work at home. I see you smiling.
It's a reality though, right?
So that's the reality. And so, that's one thing, is that we are juggling multiple responsibilities. And even though a lot of us are breadwinners, or the primary earners, we're also the primary caregivers for our family. We are also dealing with most of the mental burden, which means it's a little bit different. So mental burden, in my opinion, it's not the tangible things that you see, like dropping the kids off at school or whatever. It's all of the things you don't see. We take on the brunt of the worry. We take on the brunt of the knowing all the things about, if we're parents, all the things about the kids. My daughter just broke up with her boyfriend, or I need to make sure that she gets her project in on time, or we have to study for that spelling test on Tuesday, or whatever, all of the mental burden. So that's one of the things that we bring with us. Just, statistically speaking, we are carrying on the brunt of the mental burden. And we also bring with us, this overwhelming, and this is the one that I struggle with so much, this overwhelming imposter syndrome thing that we're still dealing with. 75% of females, regardless of where you are in your career, 75% of females experience imposter syndrome at some point in their career, which is, that's crazy to me, that we have all these highly educated women with lots of experience, and they still struggle with believing that they are good enough and that they belong. And so that's kind of what we bring. And then what we receive, again, unique challenges for us in the workplace. When we enter the workplace, first of all, it starts from a societal perspective, because although the messaging has improved over the years, somehow we still get this messaging that we must do it all and have it all and look fantastic
Yeah.
while we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
So, so we must look fantastic while we're doing it. And so there's a lot of pressure there. But when we enter into the workplace, we're dealing with things like microaggressions. I cannot tell you how many women tell me about experiences where they were spoken over or
Yes.
interrupted in meetings. So that's a form of a microaggression. So we're dealing with microaggressions. We're dealing with harassment. 59% of females deal with some form of harassment in the workplace. And then we're also dealing with, a very unique thing. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the glass cliff. But that's essentially, statistically speaking, again, I love statistics and numbers, but statistically speaking, again, women tend to be hired into leadership roles in time of crises, in times where things are just falling apart in an organization, where the likelihood of success is significantly less in comparison to their male counterparts who are normally hired into leadership roles when things are stable and doing well. So we're set up for failure a lot of times as female leaders. And then we also experience the broken rung, which is at the very beginning, coming in like from an entry level and kind of making that move into leadership. It's harder for us to make that first move into leadership, whereas with our male counterparts, they get into leadership a lot faster and a lot easier. And so what happens is, because of just think of a ladder and the first rung is broken. Because of that, we are always struggling to catch up. As in terms of female leaders. So we're facing it's very interesting. We're facing very unique challenges. So that's what we're receiving. And then what we're projecting is, we kind of fall into one of two buckets. We're either the yes, ma'am person. So we're doing everything always, constantly. We're overwhelmed. We have no boundaries. We don't know how to say no. Or we fall into the bucket of, I need to be a strong leader. So I am distant, disconnected. I might micromanage and my team doesn't trust me. And so it's a very interesting dynamic in terms of the unique challenges that we face as females stepping into leadership.
And I wanted to come back to, when you talk about microaggression, because in the industry that I came from, sometimes I was the only female in a meeting. And I think this is unconscious, by the way. I don't want to blame anybody out there who might be listening, but they would go around the room for each site and get updates. And I was commonly forgotten.
Yeah.
And so at the end, they would say, does anybody have anything else? And I said, well, does anybody want to hear from Canada? That was very common, and it became even a joke later. And so eventually they started to let me go first so I wouldn't be forgotten. Yeah. But why do those things have to happen? Like, why are those unconscious biases still out there? So, we have such unique, as you said, unique issues out there as female leaders. And I love everything that you brought up. I like those three buckets that you have as well. I think that really speaks to some of our unique challenges. And the broken rung, absolutely agree with you. It's almost, like you have to reach harder, you have to do more, you have to prove yourself harder.
Yep.
So what about showing our confidence in a different way? What are your thoughts about that if, we want to show confidence that we can be that leader and maybe fix that rung, so to speak? What are your thoughts on that?
So, there's no easy fix there, and it starts with you. And so it's, that's old saying, fake it till you make it, or I think that was the saying. I don't know how true that is. So, in terms of a confidence in female leaders, I think it starts with you. I think it starts with you asking the tough question of why. Why is it that I feel this way? Why is it that I feel that I need to do more, be more, so that I can feel that I belong or that I add value? Why is it that I feel that way? So I strongly suggest that if you're dealing with confidence, and you don't have to be in leadership, but if you're dealing with confidence in your current role, ask that question, why? And really start writing those things down. And so, we start with asking why, and then we build from there. So do I feel lack of confidence because of lack of education? If that's the case, then okay. Now I have a very solid kind of potential solution there, right? Seek
Mm-hmm.
more education, certifications, whatever my story is. If I'm lacking confidence because of something deeper, I was talking to a client who talked about being a minority female in a predominantly male industry,
Mm-hmm.
and she talked about how that really kind of hurt her self-confidence. Well, okay, well, let's look at that and ask kind of, well, why is it that you feel like that as a minority female? Where did that start? Where did that come from? Because it didn't start
Mm-hmm.
at work.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you brought with you. So that falls
Right.
into the bucket of what I bring with me, is some of these, hangups about myself or these stories that I'm telling myself. So start with asking truly why. That can be a painful
Mm-hmm.
question, but ask, why is it that I feel that way? And then look at, okay, what can I truly do here? Do I need to seek a mentor? Do I need to find a leader within my organization who looks like me?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that I need to do to start to build my self-confidence? But ultimately, for us as women, one of the things that brings us more confidence is, knowing that we understand our jobs and we have the experience and the education. So I'm always going to suggest learn, 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 learn as much
Yeah,
as you
love it.
can, for sure, because that definitely, and that's for anybody who's lacking confidence in their space.
Yeah, and I like the word why myself. I think doing self-reflection with why is really important. And I always use the 5 whys lean tool when I do it for my business or even with some clients, which is you ask why until you get to the root cause,
Yeah.
fully understand where it came from, and then learn and grow from it. So, why am I here today? Well, because I set up a meeting with Therese. And why did I do that? Well, it's for my blah, blah, blah. And you keep
Yeah,
asking
exactly.
why till you get to the cause. So I love that you brought that up because I think it is an absolute great way to think about it and to do that self-reflection as to why I'm even lacking confidence.
And to take some
So
ownership
yeah,
as well over your experience.
yeah,
Because if we continuously say, well, it's because it's a toxic work environment, well, it's because my boss doesn't recognize me, well, you're giving other things and other people a whole lot of power.
mm-hmm,
And, this is an opportunity for you to take some ownership, and therefore you will
yeah.
feel more in control. And now you're going to feel like you actually have, potential solutions as
And
well.
sometimes you can have great solutions. If you're in a
Yep.
toxic environment and you're part of that group that's creating the gossip, for example, if you really dig into your why, maybe you stop doing that, right? I
Right.
mean, there's a lot of that internal that can actually. You're absolutely right. It starts with us. It
It
has to.
definitely does. And again, it goes back to what we bring because, again, this same client, we started off the conversation with, I'm in a toxic work environment. I said, okay, great. Give me some examples. And,
Mm-hmm.
as we started picking away at it, she said things like, they don't listen to me, or, because, I'm a minority, they look at me and think I'm stupid, and so on and so forth. So I challenged her and said, okay, I'm going to poke holes. Give me examples. Give me
Mm-hmm.
examples. And she struggled. And so at the end of it, it really came back down to her feelings about who she was in that
Mm-hmm.
role as a minority. And she assumed, there was this assumption that, well, if, X, Y, and Z happened, well, it happened as a result of the fact
Right.
that I'm a female minority, when in fact it probably wasn't. It was
Mm-hmm.
just, that was her perception, and that's what she was taking from it. She actually was getting some really incredible feedback, but instead of taking that at face value, she picked it apart, and
Yeah.
came away with something completely different. So we have to be very careful with that as well. And that's not just as females, that's just in
Mm-hmm.
general.
In general,
In
yeah.
any environment, that we pause and think, okay, why do I feel this way? And okay, let me look at the facts and try to actually, look at it, from, again, a factual perspective. And if you're struggling to do that, then to your point, there might be some time for self-reflection.
Yeah. And then you can change your story. You can change those
Exactly.
beliefs
Oh,
once you recognize
yes.
it, right? Yeah,
Yes. Oh, yeah, for
absolutely.
sure. Sure. Because, again, it's just the stories that we keep telling ourselves. We didn't
Hmm.
start writing the story. It's learned behavior. It's what we've
Mm-hmm.
seen around us. It's what, our moms, our grandmas, our aunts, and, it's all of the stories that they're writing on their own that they are projecting onto us, and we're modeling that behavior, whether or not we
Mm-hmm.
realize it in
Yep.
some way. And then we take that and now we're writing this story in our heads as well in terms of what's happening. But there are real things happening as well, Tara. And
Of
that's the
course.
thing that we
Yeah.
have to be clear on, that we have a story that we're telling ourselves, but there are real things happening, and things that we're facing as we work in our environments. And that's
Absolutely.
my experience, is that's any industry,
Yes.
regardless of where you
Anybody.
work. That's every industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, every
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's change a little bit on the topic and go back to your ladder. I want to talk
Yes.
about elevating female talent and maybe what are some things that are needed. So, in the fall, I did a panel discussion where we talk about elevating female talent in trucking and transportation, what some of those barriers are and what some of those needs are. I mean, we talked about, for example, truck stops not all having showers for women or the women not feeling comfortable going into them. What do you feel you can pick at your industry or in general is needed to start to help elevate more female talent in industries, such as ours?
So the one of the biggest ones would be mentoring programs.
Yeah.
And I say mentoring programs, not just mentoring, because mentoring, I can be your mentor, right,
Mm-hmm.
Tara?
Yep.
We can meet, I can coach you, we can have really great discussions, and I will absolutely add value. But having an actual mentoring program within the workplace, it kind of shifts things a little bit. It makes it more legitimate. It
Mm-hmm.
really makes sure that the mentor has a very good understanding of the expectations of being a mentor, to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that you're really leaning in a way that helps develop certain skills within that mentee, essentially. And so that's a big one that I will always advocate for, and that is
Mm-hmm.
having actual mentoring program, and identifying those women within the organization, regardless of education, experience, title, but identifying those, those potentials. So they don't have to
Mm-hmm.
be a rock star today,
Yep.
right? But they can have the potential, they have that high level of engagement and enthusiasm, and they want to learn. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
folks that I will always want to work with. I will work with that person that has little to no experience, still
Yeah.
learning, but super enthusiastic, and they're highly engaged, because those are the people who can come up through the organization and then bring others with them. So it starts, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, with mentoring programs. The other thing that I try to work with a lot of current female leaders, and again, this goes back to what we bring. What I find, again, even though, you might be in an executive role, I found with women who are leaders, a lot of times they are still struggling again with imposter syndrome. And what
Mm-hmm.
happens when you are a female leader struggling with imposter syndrome? You are intimidated by others.
Yeah.
And you're especially intimidated by other females who are emerging and looking like they're going to be rock stars. I know that feels really terrible to say it out loud, and people will probably disagree with me, but I challenge you to sit down with that for a second and think about
Mm-hmm.
your leadership journey. And if you struggled with feeling not good enough or feeling like you have to do more, think about maybe how you interacted with other women within the organization who were coming up. That's just a little challenge to think about it. But I bring that up to say that being a woman who is a leader, if you are struggling with any of those things, you know, really try to lean in and participate in these mentoring programs, or find someone who wants mentoring, because that's
Mm-hmm.
going to challenge you and push you to be a little uncomfortable, because there's a little bit of intimidation there. But mostly, don't be afraid if they do it better than you. I had a conversation with a friend who is the chair of this huge nonprofit here, and she's been doing this for, I think, 10 years, and she's burned out, she's done, she wants to move on, but she refuses to give up her seat because, and her words were, what if somebody else comes in and they do it better than me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? So we have to kind of we have to start changing that dialogue and that interaction with other women in the industry. So mentoring programs, working on ourselves as leaders, and being okay if someone does it better than you. I know
Yeah.
that hurts to say and it hurts to hear, but it's okay because
But
someone may
it's
do it
totally
better than
fine.
you. But it's totally
Yeah.
fine and it's no reflection on you at all.
No. Actually, I'm happy that you brought that up because I'm a person who also says, as the leader, I don't have to know everything. The team is there. I don't need to know more than every single person. I mean, can
Right.
anybody actually say they can do that? Probably not because we have people to help us,
Yep.
So, use your team's strengths. It doesn't mean you have to be better than them. It means you have a team that helps you and your business get to where it needs to go, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm. Yeah. So why don't we share just a few tips for our listeners today about how we can help our female leaders lead more effectively?
So again, mentoring programs.
Mhm.
And that's a huge one. And you could be at any place in your leadership journey. You can be a brand new leader and a tenured
Yeah.
leader, whatever. So I would say mentoring programs are the big ones. And this is a bigger ask, and it's really about identifying those women within your organization who have the potential for leadership. But then
Mhm.
also looking at how we can incentivize, the emerging people, the people that we've identified as potentials. How can we incentivize them to be interested in
Mhm.
leadership as well? So I would say, mentoring, I know I keep going back to mentoring
It's
over and
important.
over again, but I would say for you as a female leader, either be a mentor or seek a mentor.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I
I
think,
think that's what it is in the nutshell. Be a mentor or seek a mentor and learn as much as you can about your industry, your environment, and the people around you. So be a mentor or seek a mentor and learn. Always learn. I think you'll hear that constantly, that just be a lifelong learner in
yeah.
whatever industry or just in whatever that there is that's in front of you.
Yeah. Learning is something that
Yeah.
humans crave in a lot of cases. And I think it's something that we can develop very easily. I want to
Yeah.
come back to something really quickly that you mentioned, which is a little bit about those leaders that you have perhaps picked for succession or to be a leader, sorry, those females or those
Yep.
workers.
Mm-hmm.
And you touched on it, and I love what you said is make sure they want that too. I mean, how
Yes.
many companies create succession plans with the management team, but never ask those people if that's what they want? Or maybe they do want that, but not in that role. They want a different role.
Yep.
And I think it's very important when you're building those succession plans to talk to those people as well and ensure that that's what they want rather than forcing them into a
That's
certain
a
leadership
big
role.
one. Yeah, that's a big one
Mm-hmm.
because, if you're not asking and really understanding what they want, there's a chance they will say yes to leadership because they believe that that's what they should do,
Mm-hmm.
need to do in order to stay with the organization long term. And maybe they're happy being individual contributors. But that being said, though, Tara, if you identify these rock stars as potential leaders, after you've had the why conversation with them, you've
Mm-hmm.
got to invest in them because a
Yes.
lot of times we promote people into leadership roles because they're fantastic at their current role as an individual contributor. So maybe I'm a recruiter and I'm a rock star. Like that's what I do. And so the thought tends to be, well, Therese is great as a recruiter, so let's make her the director of recruiting so she can
Yeah.
create little mini Therese clones, and this will be fantastic. But what we have to realize is, A, the skill set required for Therese to be a dynamic recruiter, they're not the same skills
Yeah.
that are needed to be a great leader. And so you have to pour into that new leader because you're just setting that person up for failure. And this is
Yeah.
not about female leadership, this is just in
No.
general. If you are promoting someone, you have to invest in them and recognize that the skills that made them great here may not be the skills needed to make them great
Yeah.
over here because you're going from a very me-focused role to a we-focused role. And that can be a very hard transition for folks. And all of the soft skills from a people leading perspective, having to be responsible for people, it's difficult and it can be challenging. And so you have to invest in them. So my goodness, please, if you're promoting people into leadership roles, invest in them and help them kind of, grow their skills and make their current skills more dynamic so that it makes sense as they're leading people. And I would say, and you didn't ask me, but I was just thinking about it as you were asking me another question when you said, what about tips for female leaders? I would say another big tip, and this is something I see quite a bit, if you're coming into a role, give yourself a little bit of credit, right? Give yourself some credit and recognize that you have transferable skills. So if you come into a role as a leader and maybe you're not the subject matter expert, right? Recognize that you have some transferable skills and you deserve the role that you receive. So give yourself some credit, recognize that you have some transferable skills and try to lean in on the things that people are always telling you that you're really great at. So lean in on those things. And then also to, try to focus on the parts of your job that give you a lot of energy and joy and start to figure out ways to maybe do more of those things as well. And then I would say, and this is another one that I see a lot of women doing, stop hiding your talent.
Yes. Oh, I like that one. Yes, absolutely.
Stop it. Just absolutely stop. Accept that you are good at some things and be brave enough to tell others.
Yeah. I agree. Elevate our own talent, right?
Yes.
Instead of saying it's elevating female talent, it's elevate our own talent.
Yes.
Really dig into our why, overcome whatever those barriers are that you put in yourself. And yeah, exactly. I love that.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have a lot of key takeaways today. And I think for sure the investment piece, when you do promote somebody, is very important. It doesn't even have to be just a female. Anybody that you're promoting, jumping into leadership, they need your support. They need those coaches, those mentors. They need the training, the potential retraining. They need to understand what the team can do and what they can't. And I love that you focus on the strengths, because that's where we need to start, is focusing on our strengths and doing them.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you for an amazing conversation on female talent today. So I would love our audience to know where they could find you or get to know you a little bit more online. Do you have a place they can go?
Yeah, so they can find me on my website. It's very easy. It's theresegr.com. So that's ThereseGr.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So, and it's just my name. I keep it pretty simple. So it's just Therese Gopaul-Robinson. So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn or via my website.
Awesome. Thank you again. I mean, such an amazing conversation about female talent and bringing out those female leaders. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Tara. This was great. I really appreciate it.
Of course, we want to thank our listeners as well. We both hope you enjoyed the conversation with us today. If you are in leadership or hope to be a leader who knows that support and developing your skills are the way to moving forward on your leadership journey, or you want to join a leadership community, please visit us at amplifyingleadership.ca, a twin life coaching and business services division. Until next time, please be safe and be an amazing leader or leader to be.